Hello and welcome to Kim's Cozy Corner. I am going to continue to improve the overall garden today. We're going to add some more cattle panel trellising as well as some garden cleanup if we have time. For those of you who follow me, I added cattle panel trellising to my garden last year. The trellising was added pretty much to most of my raised beds in my primary garden area. So all behind me here, I added trellising to all of these spaces back here. But along my garage here, I didn't add any trellising, and we're going to add trellising to two of the beds in this space. So that's what we're going to work on next, as well as an arch trellis. So let's get to that. In order to add this trellising, one of the first things I need to do is put some T-posts into the ground. Hopefully I'm tall enough to drive these into the ground. Now this particular raised bed is pretty much on its last leg, and most likely next year I'm going to change it out for a metal raised bed, but this year it's going to have to work out. So we're going to get these T-posts in the ground. Now I have two videos out there already on how to install cattle panel trellis. And so if you're interested in the full process, how to cut it, how to get it to size and everything, check out either one of these two videos. One will tell you how to just do a standard trellis, and then I have one that'll show you how to set up a grapevine trellis as well as an arch trellis. Today, we're going to just get this done as quickly as we can. We have the sun on our side today, which is rare in spring in Southwest Ohio, so I just want to move quickly. Now, I do have a post driver. This is 18.5 pounds to kind of help drive these into the ground. And that's it. That's all we got to do. And I'll do that on the other post. Now that's good enough because I know I'm going to have to take these out and replace this bed next year. So they're in. They're definitely in to get us through the year, but I don't want them in permanently because I know I'm going to need to take them out. All right, I needed to stop from that project and do another project while I have help. So I have an arch trellis right here, and I am going to make it a double arch trellis. So we're going to bring that trellis all the way to the entrance of the garden on this side. And I have somebody to help me do that, so we're going to do that next. My cattle panel trellis are 16 feet long, and that's actually the most economic way to purchase them. Stand it up like that. There you go. Now come all the way around. Well, come around this way. It's extremely muddy out here.
I was really happy for my mother to help me install the cattle panel trellis. This is something I would have had a very hard time trying to do by myself. It's easier to do with two people. We still had a few issues trying to get it installed, as that this trellis seemed to be slightly bigger than the original trellis that was there, so we had to get creative and cut it down to size to make it fit. Once it was cut, it was easier to get it to fit into place. There's no way I could have done this project without my mother's help, so I'm very grateful for her.
Thank you. My helper. Now that my helper's gone, I can get back to putting this trellis up. So I had a piece left from last year's, and It's just a hair too wide, but we are going to use it anyway. The bottom's cut out, so this is going to work perfectly. Now I'm going to be using this trellis for, what am I using this for? Cantaloupes, I believe. So we want to raise it up just a bit. I should have kept my helper. See if I can find a way to stand it up without a helper. That's one more trellis up. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on the bed right next to me. So let me get to it. And this is the process I'm going to use throughout the garden. And so I will bring you back when I'm finished and I will show you the upgrade to the trellises this year. Another one down. So I intentionally left these coming down toward the ground because this is a vining plant. It's not like a tomato plant. So I need the vines to quickly catch hold and go up this vine. And yes, I am growing cantaloupe up a trellis. So that we did it last year, it worked, and it's the first time I've ever actually got cantaloupe. So I'm really excited about that this year. In addition to the trellising I did over by the garage, I also did some trellising here on this side of the garden. I added to the trellising that was already here. Back here, I had one 50-inch section and I've added a second 50-inch section. So roughly, we're gonna have about 8 feet of trellising back here. So the trellising will take you all the way into the garden. It's gonna be a nice tunnel. And we're gonna put pole beans on this trellis back here. Pole beans will come up this side here, as well as this side over here, making a beautiful tunnel of beautiful flowers and vegetables. Now last year, I only had 8 pole beans in this area. I only had 8 pole beans growing back here. And those 8 pole beans came up and they're like green beans. So the pole beans are green beans. And they came up and they provided more than a year's supply of beans for my family. Now I had pole beans and I had bush beans and I had them in my garden and I had them over at the neighbors and I had them in my GreenStalk. So I had beans everywhere. So it was definitely more than a year's supply. But this year we're feeding even more families. So we need to increase the overall production of our garden. So we will be adding a ton more pole beans to this space. In front of the pole beans last year, I had celery growing in front of the pole beans. Well, this year we're going to probably put onion in the front of the pole beans or some other cool season crop, maybe even lettuce, because it's going to get shady. And that shade could really help my lettuce from bolting so I can have more lettuce in the garden longer when we get to those hot summer months. On this side here, we'll also do the same thing. Something will go in front of the pole beans. And we are going to just make sure we're utilizing this space as best we can. On this back side, this trellis here last year, I had cucumbers on this end and I had tomatoes down on that end. And this year, we're going to do cucumbers in that whole space. So that's all that I did today from a trellising standpoint. We will do more trellising in the very near future, but that's it for today. But let's look at some other things that are happening in the garden. Let's just look around the garden and let's look at what's already starting to come into the season. Today is March 4th and it's 75 degrees, but spring's not here yet. It has not sprung here. We are still several weeks out from what we would really consider spring. And there are some things happening that I would love to show you. So let's just go and look around the garden at some things that are getting ready to start happening in the garden. It was just a couple of weeks ago that I filmed me pruning back these blackberry bushes, and there are already little buds on these blackberries. So they are ready and they are happy and they're just waiting for the signal for spring to begin. Now, we did get blackberries last year, so this won't be the first year for blackberries, but rather the second year for blackberries. And there is another fruit that's starting to look like it's going to do something really soon, at least from a budding standpoint, and that's my peach trees. You see that? These peach trees, especially this one, is very, very happy and it's just waiting for the signal to go ahead and release its blooms. Now this tree hopefully will give us quite a few peaches this year. Now I tell you, spring's not here, but you couldn't tell it by the temperature today. And we've had so much rain. I mean, so much rain over the last few weeks, and it just has nowhere else to go. So let me show you one of my big messes that we got to figure out. Now, it's not a garden mess, but it's right off of my patio here. So on my patio, I usually have a couple green stalks over there set up ready to go. And the girls normally play in this space here. But look, I have standing water. I have standing water. We had a shed put in here so that we had somewhere to put all of our gardening things as well as lawnmowers and kids' toys. And the ground was so wet that the skid steer got stuck in the yard back there, had to dump its load, and had to use the patio as the main way to bring the gravel in. And so we messed up the sidewalk, along with quite a few other areas here that we will have to repair when it dries up just a bit. Now, I'm not letting that get me down because at the end of the day, it's going to be gorgeous over here with the amount of work we're doing on our yard this year. So it's a little wet, it's a little muddy, it's a little slushy, but it won't last forever. There's one other thing I'd like to show you out here today, and that's my cool season crops that I've started hardening off. So if you remember, we started all of these indoors in my indoor grow space. And before I can put them in the ground outside, I need to harden them off. Now, my plants are not used to the very strong rays of the sun. And so hardening off means we need to get it acclimated to being outdoors. And that process involves bringing them out, letting them stay out an hour or so, and then taking them back inside and doing that over a course of about a week. Now, if it's a nice cloudy day, you might be able to leave them out a little longer, but if you leave them out under the direct sun rays straight out the house, you're pretty much going to have sun scald on your plants and they may not survive. And so we are on day 3 of bringing my cool season crops out. So hopefully we will be able to put them in the garden in about 2 weeks. My cool season crops right now that you see out here consist of just brassicas. There's broccoli, there's cauliflower, there's cabbage, there's purple cabbage and regular cabbage, round cabbage and cone-shaped cabbage out here. There's Korean cabbage out here. There's Napa cabbage or Chinese style cabbage out here. And that's everything that you see in these trays here. Now, I intentionally moved these trays up here to start hardening them off because I need to start up potting my peppers and making room for my tomatoes and all of those other things. And so since the weather is kind of warming up, your cool season crops actually can take a frost. They actually like cooler weather. So bringing them up now, starting to harden them off now, and all I need is a couple good days and I'll stick them in the ground and they'll be just fine with those light frosts. Now, some of these actually prefer a light frost. It'll make them sweeter. And so we have them out here. We're getting them ready to go. We are getting ready for that spring garden. Now, I talked about the different things that we're going to do in my garden this year, as far as getting the trellises up, trying to start preparing the soil, even though it's so wet out there. We talked about our cool season crops, but I'm also way over there, way back there. That's my neighbor's garden, y'all. And I plan to plant that garden up this year again, just like we did last year. And I'm going to take trellising over there as well. So in another video, we will put cattle panel trellising up over there as well. But for now, this is where we're going to call it quits. We're going to end right here. I hope you enjoyed this brief update of some of the things that I'm working on around the garden, around Kim's Cozy Corner. And I hope you'll come back here really soon and visit with me again. Until next time, and I hope there will be a next time that you come back to Kim's Cozy Corner. Bye.